Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Great to be with you on the show today. We had the one day with Jason.
Mm-hmm. And as you would imagine, everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong.
It did, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. But now I am back on these airwaves right here with you.
And
After spending 2 days
it's
with you.
finally going right.
Oh, jeez.
Finally going right. It's just unbelievable.
Finally.
Something that's interesting is there's been a lot of talk, and Pete Thamel put the story out there on college basketball game day. Let's say 2-3 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And that they're advancing. It's going to be 72 or 76, and that 76 was absolutely the leader.
Number of teams in the NCAA
tournament. Dan Gavitt was interviewed by CBS.
Okay.
And he said, no, nothing's been decided yet. And by the way, when we talk about the NCAA and the leadership of the NCAA, we never include Dan Gavitt in there.
No.
Never. Because Dan Gavitt is universally respected. He is universally respected, and because he's earned it. He makes decisions and is a part of the decision-making process for the good of the game, for the good of the student-athlete. Again, universally respected. So when we talk about the NCAA, his name should never be included in any criticism.
NCAA minus him, essentially, when it comes to the negatives.
Now, there are hardworking people at the NCAA that work really hard. The problem is the leadership floor. I mean, and that's a big problem. But he's not one of them. And he said that, look, he was against going 72-76 for a long time. Now he freely admits that, you know what? He says, I want to see how the House case turns out in early April. And he's not against going 72-76.
Okay.
But he says it's a discussion that can't take place right now because they want to know what the landscape is actually going to look like.
There's too much uncertainty around it.
Well, that's because of the House thing. I mean, it has to be approved first, and what are the parameters and the financial parameters around it. Then what do you do with extra schools if you were to go? So let's go the maximum of 8. Do you now select a second site in the West? That would be a balance to Dayton.
Would there be a second round of or first 4, I guess?
What would the costs be? Because there are now more per diems involved. There are now more flights involved. More hotels are now involved. Right? Another arena rental is involved. All right? Now, you're talking about a tournament that doles out $1 billion a year.
But how is the money divided?
Well, the money, you'd have to, that's one thing that they will find. People do not, and especially the smaller conferences, and they're justified in feeling this way, you have to find more money somewhere.
Yeah.
For this reason. They don't want the unit price to go down. The unit price is about $360,000. And if you're the Patriot League, for example, you're counting on that.
Yeah.
That's why the House settlement is going to be difficult for smaller conferences because the back pay part of it from 2017 to 2023, that's where it's coming out of.
So let's say a Lafayette, where they're in the Patriot League, and Leo O'Boyle used to play for them. Like, he's part of it. And like all these other players in the Patriot League, like as you said, they rely on that money, and they don't want less money. They'd like more, if anything, but they don't want to go down. Well,
they were doing 5-year budget plans a few years ago. They weren't counting on getting less of an NCAA distribution. They had it locked in as to what the NCAA distribution was going to be up to 2032. Well, now, because of the settlement, that's where part of it's going to come from. The NCAA out of reserves will cover 60% of it. The other 40% is going to come out of distribution. So do you now sit there and add in the 8 schools, and is it possible contractually, A, to go to CBS and Warner Discovery and say, because that's Turner, right, and say, hey, can we have more? Or do you go to them and saying, hey, look, we're adding these extra games, 4 more games. Does the contract allow us to then get somebody else? Pick one. Netflix, Paramount Plus, which is CBS anyway. But I think they've got a split. Is Paramount Plus going to split from CBS? I'm trying to. It doesn't matter.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. So. Or do you go to Hulu, or do you go whatever? Okay. Let's do you go to Prime? Prime would love, I think, to jump in and do something like that. And does the contract allow you to do that, which then in turn brings with it, voila, added money.
And by the way, this is, I think, the one sport where having lots of streaming options is the best thing. As someone who used to watch this sitting in his high school, I would pull up the March Madness like stream thing they have, the Live Buzz or whatever it's called, and be watching them in school. So if you have it on streaming services, it's the best thing because these games are going on all day long. People want to watch it, and they don't have TVs nearby. Like, this is the one sport where streaming services actually do matter a lot.
Well, but CBS was streaming this a long time ago, but they streamed it for free. Okay?
Yeah.
You would not be streaming Amazon Prime for free.
But it can be on those platforms, and all of a sudden, people will use them.
And Amazon Prime would make sense because you already have people subscribed to the NFL. Beginning next year, they'll probably extend their subscriptions to go to the NBA.
Yeah.
And they also have Major League Baseball.
So the next logical jump would be the collegiate sports, and there's only one sport bigger than college basketball. So,
and that's where they are right now. And that's the 76, that's 72, 76. And do you end up adding an additional site? Now, where in the West you go for that? Like, because Dayton has always been, they don't just do a good job in Dayton.
They do a great job.
They completely embrace it, and they get people to come out and watch the games.
What other, because Dayton is not just a decent market, decent sized market, but it's also got a good collegiate sports market.
But they love college basketball.
And they love college basketball. Is there a market you can go to somewhere out west? And where out west do you count? Because, of course, you can't go up to Washington because they already have games played out there.
Well, I mean, you could pick a site that you've had before. You can go to Spokane. Spokane loves basketball.
Doesn't Spokane already have one of the main?
No, they rotates all the time.
So you could use Spokane will be a decent option. It wouldn't be bad.
Because they love basketball up there. It's a decent-sized market. They got plenty of hotels. They've hosted NCAA opening rounds before.
Yeah. So a Spokane, a Eugene, maybe.
You could pick a spot in Texas. There's a lot of things. A lot of things that you can do. Where you have at least a more Western site to play something like this.
Hypothetically, could you do a Vegas? Would they do that?
Oh, UNLV, you could do Vegas, but
UNLV, the Aces Stadium.
The one thing that you need to do with this is that when you put together the agreement, we're getting ahead of our skis on this one.
But when it would
if you get an agreement, it's going to have to be an every year agreement, which means it knocks you out of the first and second rounds.
Yes.
They don't want to knock Las Vegas out of the first and second rounds.
So they'd go to a secondary site somewhere else.
Right.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
So you don't want to knock that site out. In Spokane, for example, maybe, I would rather be in the rotation.
They'd rather have 1 year in, 1 year out to have the first and second rounds versus not.
Now, now the next option would be Seattle, right, for first and second rounds. But I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, here's one for you. You could Boise.
I was gonna say you could do a Boise. You can pick one of those places. Could you do like a Sioux Falls? I know, like
the Pentagon. Sure, you could play up there.
That could be cool. And of course, they're big about basketball. Like that could be a place you go to, like one of the a fun place, a fun location where maybe they don't have games all the time. Maybe they're not in the rotation, but this would be the way to get them in.
But Boise has hosted first and second rounds before, so they know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about the first four, which would be the first 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how would the bracket look, if I may ask, if it goes to 76? Because of course,
first of all, they're not all going to be 15s and 16s playing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like that, because if you notice, to get a little juice in the tournament, they've had 2 11s play each other. They've had 2 12s play each other.
So I'm guessing
it might expand to the possibility of having a couple of 10s play each other.
I was going to say maybe 10s and 13s or 14s maybe are the options they go for.
Right.
But how would it look? So as things stand, you've got the round of 64, plus you have those teams playing in. So you have a 16.
In other words, they're playing their way into the tournament, so that when the dust settles on a Wednesday night, there are 64 schools remaining.
Yes. So you have 2 11s playing, or 4 11s technically, and then 4 16s, correct, right now?
Yeah.
So what would you do to add in? So would you do, hypothetically, get 4 10s to play, and then 4?
You could.
And you'd add in 4.
Could.
You get to 72 that way, though, and you're still 4 short. So would you add in another set?
Well, no. In other words, all the 16s have to play.
Okay. So you'd have
all the 16s have to play. Right now, not all the 16s play.
Yeah. So you'd have all 4 games to get in. So you'd have 8 teams play, 8 16s.
Yeah, so you've got that part to take care of. Now, how do you play games with the other 4 games?
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about between Dayton and whatever other site. Now, how do you play games with it? Do you have 11s match up? Do you have 10s match up? Do you have 12s match up? Something.
Yeah.
But all 4 16s, because right now, not all 4 16s play.
Only it's each side basically has
2.
1. Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty much each spot.
Well, now everybody has to play.
That makes sense.
And people are like, no, you're in the tournament. So you win that game, guess what? You do have an NCAA tournament win.
And as has been discussed, as we have discussed quite a bit, I think, on this show, especially when it comes to other teams, is that it helps sometimes if you are a team, as we learned in the college football playoff, you get that extra game in early, you come in already rolling into the tournament. And especially in college basketball, where you see teams, if they get hot, they stay hot a lot of the time.
Well,
and they can go on these runs like NC State last year. They got hot and did not lose it until the Final Four. And we've seen it with Loyola Chicago, where their shooters, they're shooting really well. They can make a pretty deep run.
Right.
So it might not be the worst thing in the world. You might look at it as a negative to some teams and say, but we're not in it. But as you said, if you win it, it's a win in the NCAA tournament. Plus, you can get momentum to go into your next game. And as we've seen, anyone can beat anybody on any given day. Ask FDU that, ask UMBC. It can happen. It might be beneficial for you to have an extra game beforehand.
Yeah, and that's why when you see conference tournaments, the upsets always occur against any team that has a bye. And people say, well, how can that be? They had a great... No. What happens is they always end up playing a team that happened to win the night before. Well, guess what? They feel good about themselves. They have momentum. They won. So they've got some juice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you see the double bye teams lose. That's where you see the bye team lose. And it happens all the time in conference tournaments because of the factor you just talked about. Now, it has not happened yet where a 16 has come out of there and done that. All right? But it has happened where you've had a first five or first four team, and Mike Rhodes would know firsthand. He was an assistant coach at VCU when they did this.
Mm-hmm.
They came out of Dayton, went all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah. It's feasible.
And somebody else came out of the first four and made it. And that's I'm
attempting to find
but
VCU. You had LaSalle in 2013 make their way to the round of 16.
They made the round of 16.
Tennessee in 2014 made the Sweet 16. And then you had Cuse in 2018, my team, make it to the Sweet 16. We lost to Duke that year. I remember that one. That was when I had just gotten into college.
Right.
And then UCLA back in 2021 was the team that made it, of course, to the Final Four. Lost to Gonzaga in overtime after the Jalen Suggs half-court buzzer beater. So that was the other team to make it.
Right.
So it's possible. Again, if you have a team that's well put together and you get rolling, anything is feasible at this point. And again, as we've seen quite a bit of times, you and I have seen it a lot this season, if a team is shooting cold, doesn't matter how good you are, if you can't make a shot and the other team can, it kind of gets rid of any positive you might have. Like, let's say at Fairleigh Dickinson or UMBC, like we saw it with UMBC when they won.
Right.
Virginia was cold. Ice cold.
Right.
Or Purdue.
And you need to have that happen. Well, and not only that, but they put a lot of pressure on the guards. They took away passing lanes inside and so forth.
And if you game plan well and you're feeling yourselves and you're confident, like 20-year-olds they don't know what they don't know. They're not going to go in there fearful of a team. They're going to go in there being like, we can beat them. Everyone says that. And as we've seen, teams win. Teams all the time do it. And sometimes you get a Lehigh and a CJ McCollum taking down Duke. It happens.
And sometimes you have a team that's smart and knows how to play against a team that is ultra talented and actually doesn't know how to play.
And let's be honest, cocky. A lot of teams come in cocky to the tournament thinking we are going to win it all. No one's going to be close to us. Yeah. They get punched in the mouth. They're dazed. And then they're down 12. And then what are you going to do?
Well, we're great. Whatever. Again, there is a team that's coming in here tomorrow that's very talented. And this is something where we were talking about Penn State yesterday on the show when you were sleeping. And I talked about, hey, look, at the end of games, they don't have a concept of time and score. And this has been an issue with this team really for a couple of years. There are times at the end of halves where Dick and I are like, don't go too soon. We say that on the broadcast. Don't go too soon. All right? And they do. You're like, okay. And the other night, there's a shot being put up for three that would have tied the game, but it's not the right shot. Just get a basket. You've got so much more time than you realize. So now let's go to Maryland. The game's tied. Over here in the back, does that mean that any score puts you in front?
Yes.
And 8 times out of 10 in college basketball, and I'm not, and I'm being conservative.
Yeah, you're being kind.
8 times out of 10 in college basketball, and again, this goes back to the know how to play the game factor. People put up a 3. Like, I'll sit there and go, what are you doing? Right? If you drive to the basket and get fouled, you get a chance to now take a couple of free throws. If you go in there and you can run something backdoor or whatever and get a basket, you go in front.
And how many times have we seen it in these college basketball games where someone drives the lane with like 13 seconds left, puts a shot up, it bounces around, ends up in the hands of that one dude who can catch it and put it right back up for a quick layup? How many times have we seen it? Time and time again. You see it happen. Just clear out a side of the floor, let your best player who can drive the ball get downhill, get him to the basket, put it up, and say...
But the player doesn't think that way.
I know,
okay?
Which is crazy.
Okay? The three is like the hero ball shot.
Mm-hmm.
Gillespie took a three the other night.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many. There's like 5 to 7 seconds left.
7 seconds left, I believe.
But he takes it from almost 30 feet. I'm like, what are you doing? Here, the worst outcome you have, the worst should be we're going to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you were down 9 with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. You're the team on the run here. You're the one on the come. All right? The other team's on its heels. And you need any basket to win. And you take that shot? And I'm watching Indiana play Maryland. Now it's flip it around. Indiana needs any basket to win. Woodson, we'll just leave it at that. Woodson, who in the games I've broadcast over the years has made some really interesting decisions.
Yeah, that's safe to say.
Takes out Renew and puts in a three-point shooter. The game is a one-point game. Any basket wins. And, of course, they get the ball in. What do they take? A three. Yeah. And it was no good. Like, what? I mean, and again, over and over again, every game I watch, it seems that when they're close, it's either, I think that's the easiest shot I have, or it's the hero ball shot. Like, and I sit back and I say, excuse me, here in the back, does anybody know how to play the game? Does anybody out there? I mean, and I'm not being a jerk here, right? Time, score, score. What do I need here?
And can I ask a question?
I don't understand why the time and score part. I don't know if it's like all the AAU basketball people have played because it doesn't really enter into it because winning and losing doesn't matter so much. I mean, it may matter to the person coaching it or whatever, but it's not, But to the players, like, there's no consequence to losing.
Yeah, I've grown up watching enough basketball, whether it's collegiate or pro, or in the case of me playing in high school gyms for my fun teams that I'm playing with in Park and Rec, or in college in the intramurals. It's always been when you have 10 seconds left on the game clock, or as close as you can get to 10 seconds on the shot clock at the end of that game. Let's say you have 10 seconds left on the clock. That's when you try and make your move to the basket.
We think it's actually 7 or 8.
7 or 8? Okay, so 7 or 8 seconds.
I think 10's too far out.
But you start the action at 10, you make your move to the basket, 7, 8 seconds left. You get downhill. And a lot of times what we see happen is players then immediately will crash in. It's the case a lot of times because everyone on the defensive side is like, I think I can swipe the ball away, or I can block the shot on the back end. I can do something to affect it. So then defensive players rotate in. All of a sudden, if you are, let's say this is Penn State playing, you're Ace Baldwin driving downhill, and you're like, I'm driving, I know in my right corner, Zach Hicks is there, or Freddie Leone is there, or DeMarco Dunn is there. I see the defender come in 2 steps. Okay, a 3 in that case is okay because it's a wide open shot. That's okay. But don't just pull up from 3 with 12 seconds left when you don't need it. Drive downhill, create chaos, and think, okay, if he doesn't come in and I can get to the basket, if you got a big man in there, in the case of Penn State, in Yannick and Niederhauser, and you can put a shot up, he's close enough to the rim that he can either get a tip in, or maybe it's far enough away from the hoop that he can just dunk it himself. Like, it gives you so many options. It creates so many problems. The 3 gives you one option. There is nothing else that gives you more than that on the court, unless you are Kevin Durant and do some sort of crazy move to get completely open at the elbow. Like outside of that, I don't know what you want. I don't get it. Like get to the basket, put it up. I mean, like, in other words, affect the game.
But in other words, say I go into the lane and I kick it out for a 3. Fine.
Yeah.
Right. But like I'm seeing over and over again the no paint touch. Possession. When a basket wins the game, and I'm talking about games tied or 1-point games. Like there's a no paint touch possession.
It doesn't enter the arc.
Right? And just going in there, they collapse, and in collapsing, boom, I kick it out and say Zach Hicks is there, and they're not going to lay off. Okay.
No. And if he misses, okay, you got a great shot.
Right, whatever. You get a great shot. I see over and over again, like, right, and Dick and I will be watching games go, here comes a 3.
Yeah.
Like we say it, here comes a 3.
Yeah.
Yep, take a 3, no good. Gee, I'm really shocked.
Or
because they're trying to do the Sports Center thing. Well, Gillespie made Sports Center
for the wrong reason,
right? But because Holloman made the shot from midcourt,
and it also seems like at the end of the games there are certain teams, as we've discussed, who then also could make the wrong play. Who, for whatever reason, let's say in the Indiana game, I believe Penn State was down. Was it 5? I think with like 56 seconds left, and you and Dick on the broadcast said if they play this right, they can get 2 cracks at the apple.
That's right.
They should be able to get there, get a shot off real quick, get it in there with
you don't even need to get off a shot quick.
No.
If you can get off if you can get a shot off before it hits 40 seconds, you have now assured yourself of a 2 for 1, which means that middle one has to be a stop.
And if you get a stop, all of a sudden you're down 3. And then at that point, you can make anything happen. If you have enough time to get down real fast and get a layup and then assure yourself a second shot, sure, go for it. But if not, you know you have an opportunity for at least something. And as we've seen, if you can get, let's say, Ace or someone else downhill, they make an and 1, or you get the ball to Yannick and he was dominant, you get him the ball, he gets an and 1, makes a free throw, tie game, or you get an open 3 to somebody.
But again, even in that situation, down the stretch, Yannick rushed a couple times. I don't understand the rushing part. I mean, I don't understand that. Because, look, in football, you've got the 2-minute warning now. And then usually James has 3 timeouts remaining.
Yeah.
You've got, and the clock in the side of 2 minutes pauses and every first down. You've got really so much time. Basketball, guess what? These guys have more time than they realize out there. Every basket in the side of 1 minute stops the clock. You've got time. Okay? You make a basket, guess what? The clock stops. You can set your defense. You can do whatever you want. Right? And Michigan has been great at this in that they've won 10 games by 4 points or less. Every time I turn around, even like the Nebraska game the other night, they won that game. It was a game that set the game back 30 years, but they won the game 49-46. Okay, a 3-point win, another one. This will come in handy.
Make that 11, by the way, because of last night against Rutgers.
Oh, I didn't see that. Didn't see the Rutgers score.
They won 84-82. Burnett made a 3-point buzzer beater. It was long. They got the rebound, got out in transition. He chucked up a 3 with like 2 seconds left on the clock and made it.
Okay. So they've won 11 games like that now. You get to a point where confidence enters into it. We're going to get into the NCAA tournament. Dusty May can now look at his team in the huddle, down 2 or 3 with 5 minutes to go, up 2 or 3 with 5 minutes to go. And he can look at his guys and say, hey, we've been here before, let's finish it.
Yeah.
Right? He can. And what's interesting is about the ability to win close games. Don't.
So I'm intrigued to see what you're going to say here.
Don't conflate the ability to win really close games with being great.
Because it means you're in close games.
Right? the really good teams, the great ones, aren't in close games.
Yeah. And they're not in close games except for a couple times, and when they are, they win them. You should be 2-0 in close games.
Right, but for the most part, most coaches are around 500 in close games. I mean, I think there's some sort of like Krzyzewski must have been a billion and 100 and 0 in close games. He's a genius. He lost a ton of close games in his career because everybody does. The margin's so thin, any crazy thing can happen to you.
What would you consider a close game, by the way? Give me a point total at the end of the game.
Well, I usually say 5 points or less.
5 points or less,
right? But close game can be anything. You could have a 4-point game and a couple of free throws make it 6 at the end. So I just use that as an average.
Yeah. Auburn has played 28 games this season. They have been in 5 close games.
Right.
What do you think their record is in those games?
I'm going to guess, based on their record, 3-2.
4-1. They lost to Duke by 6. I'm not including the Florida game. They lost by 9 in that one.
Right.
But outside of that, they've won every other one of those games. They've been in 5.
By margins.
They've won 4.
Right.
That's all. That's the point. Is like the best teams don't get in close games, but when they do, they know how to win them.
Right.
That is the sign of a good team. Not being in them every week.
I mean, sometimes getting into a close game when you've been blowing everybody out, it was like, okay, how do we react to this one? But during the regular season, the really good teams aren't in close games. When Penn State had in 2020, they got as high as 9th in the country. They had an 8-game winning streak. You want to know what the 8-game winning streak each game had in common? They blew everybody out. They went to Purdue when they went to Purdue. Seth Lundy, I think, had 18, and he was a freshman at the time. And they just ran them out of the building. The really good teams are not in close games. Duke has probably not been in a lot of close games this year.
Well, let's find out, actually. We can do that right now.
I mean, Houston might be. Houston might be because Houston's defense is so good.
Yeah.
Their offense is okay, but their defense is great. So the scores normally are kept down a bit.
Yeah. Duke has been in 4 close games this season in total. What do you think? And they are 25-3 on the season.
25-3. I'm going to say they're in close games, 2-2.
1-3.
Right.
But they've only been in 4 close games. Either 24 games they won, blowouts, or at least 6
I think
points
Clemson
plus.
was one of them, right?
They lost to Kentucky by 5, Kansas by 3, and Clemson by 6.
Yeah.
So they've lost the close games. That's all they've lost. They don't lose blowouts. They lose close games.
Right. Well, the other games, they blew everybody out.
Every other game they've won by minimum 6 to 8 points.
They're an interesting team because do I think they're the best team? Yeah, I do, except here's the problem. And this is, I'm not joking around about your school here. Okay? The strength of schedule in the ACC outside of Clemson
it's horrendous.
And Louisville is really a challenge here. And Clemson beat them. And of course, I saw Clemson twice in person.
Yeah.
And I was impressed by Clemson when I saw. I said to Dick, I said, Penn State lost to them by 6. I said, Dick, that's a darn good team. I said they're really good because I saw them play San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then I saw them play Penn State.
The only game I'm somewhat impressed by Duke, honestly, was their game against Illinois recently.
Well, they blew them out.
Blew them out as being
Illinois had illness running through the team, and Johnson's out.
Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use an injury as an excuse.
Dare you? How dare you, Steve?
Sorry.
Yeah. Duke won.
There's a reason he's playing and not the other guy that replaced. That's okay. I don't want to do that.
Yes, but they won 110-67 to give an idea. But in terms of, as you said, the ACC is not good outside of the couple teams that exist in the conference.
Right.
As you said, Clemson, decent. Louisville, decent.
Because to me, the 3 best teams, at least I feel like I've seen, have been Duke, Auburn, and Houston.
Yeah. Auburn is at the real deal.
And all 3 of them have something in common. Right? and that is all three actually play really good defense. Duke is actually a very good defensive team. They are not just a team that goes down and, okay, we're going to win the game 92-80, right? No. They are a really good defensive team. They move well. They've got length. Auburn is a very good defensive team. Yes. Janai Broome is a tremendous player. And Houston, of the three, is the best defensive team of the
they
board.
are. Kelvin Sampson made them a defensive stronghold for years now.
I mean,
where they just they kill you on defense.
Look, we were just at Indiana, and Kelvin Sampson spent 3 years there. The 3 years he won, but it was tumultuous. There was the phone scandal, which today would be no scandal at all, zero.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. But he went to the NBA. And he spent a lot of time, I think mostly with the Milwaukee Bucks. I think some with the Houston Rockets, but mostly with the Milwaukee Bucks. And he spent a lot of time in the NBA as an assistant coach. And to his credit, when he had the ability to come back and coach college basketball, where finally somebody said, you know what, we don't care what happened at Oklahoma or at Indiana, we're going to hire you.
Yeah.
He's taken his, quote, second act, and he has rehabilitated Houston basketball, and he has rehabilitated his reputation.
Yeah.
And I give him all the credit in the world. Because it's obvious he is a terrific coach. He knows which players he needs to have out there to play the style of game he wants to play, because if you don't play defense for him, you will not play.
You know who made a living on playing defense? Jamal Shed.
Yeah.
He was and that entire team these past 2 years were just monsters on defense. They weren't just getting steals and blocks and things. They were just hounding you every step of the way.
Well, they cut off passing lanes. They have length. Again, this goes to the kind of player he recruits. He's got length. They have quickness. And their rotations are excellent. That's why I asked Mike last night on the talk show about going through the Big Ten last year. He said, look, he says, we need to get bigger wings. Okay. And so he returned Puff Johnson as a bigger wing, and he recruited Eli Rice as a bigger wing.
And he kept Zach Hicks as a longer wing. Zach Hicks is a bigger wing. Yeah.
Okay.
Got 3.
How many of the 3 are playing right now?
1. Injury, healthy.
I mean, that's the issue with it. I want to get, and that was the point of the question, because now you've had to adjust again. Because what you thought you had in July, what you knew you had in October, with the hope that Eli was going to come back, and then finally Eli, he gave it a shot, played one game, and then that was it. But that's why they recruited the way they did, to get bigger wings, because it is a bigger wing league.
You see it with Indiana, where you've got Nkenzie Mbako playing the 3.
Yeah.
And he is big and long and tall and strong.
Yeah, and you'll see, I mean tomorrow you're going to see Reese and Queen together. Reese is 6'9", having a great year. And Queen it's a conference that doesn't have a lot of remarkable freshmen, because I mean, at some point I'm going to have to vote for this thing. Mobley has been terrific. Bailey's been terrific. Harper's been terrific. And Queen has been terrific.
Yes.
But name me other freshmen in the conference. Because of all of the transfers, name me freshmen.
The only other one I could think of would be like maybe, just because out of default, if you're picking 5, Will Riley from Illinois, but I wasn't impressed by him.
Right, and he's just
wasn't impressive. He just kind of played, and he was okay against Penn State. But
and now the only other team I haven't seen yet, I haven't seen Wisconsin, but that's a veteran team.
Yeah, and we'll see them in a week's time. But speaking of these teams, by the way, I'm looking at the rankings. I have them pulled up. Michigan State is ranked 8th, and I know they just beat Maryland on the buzzer beater.
Yep.
Am I wrong in thinking they're not the 8th best team in the nation?
You know what?
Izzo's a great coach.
Kyle, I don't know who the 8th. Okay. Like, first of all, the rankings don't matter. It's just a matter on where you put on the S curve when it comes to the NCAAs. When you have 5 of the preseason top 10 teams no longer in the poll, what's happened is that between the portal and NIL, the landscape is evened out so much. That's why, for example, a Duke, what they've done is John Shire's done remarkable work there. I mean, that's not Mike Krzyzewski recruiting. I mean, he's playing his players. I mean, Mike Krzyzewski did not recruit Cooper Flagg. All right? When I see what Bruce Pearl has done with Auburn, now they were in the Final Four under his tenure. It's the year Virginia won, I believe. And then you see what Houston's done on a consistent basis.
Nate Oates, Alabama, like...
Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting. They're really good. They made the Final Four last year. They have now slumped here near the end. I mean, the game in Missouri, they got run out, which is not out of the ordinary. I mean, it's going to happen at times. I think, didn't South Carolina finally beat somebody the other day? South Carolina had not won a single conference game and then won the other night. And it was somebody that was semi-significant.
I remember it happening. It was Missouri. They won by...
Missouri.
Or no, they lost to Missouri. They beat Texas.
They beat Texas.
15.
That's what I'm talking about.
They lost to Missouri by 30. My bad.
Right. Missouri's really good. Gates has done a great job there. In fact, Banks, who transferred from Indiana to Missouri, has played very well for them. You know, he did. Dan Dockage has been really critical of Banks when he was at Indiana. Okay, well, that's fine. All right. And has continued to be, and he said, you're relying on that guy. But see, he should know anybody as a former coach that everybody develops at their own rate. All right? And suddenly things click in for you. Just, you know, and it's not because of location, it's because of timing in life. Like things like clicked in. Okay. But South Carolina beat Texas. Well, Terry, when he took over as the interim coach for Chris Beard, you know, and they beat Penn State by 5. I feel like I've said that too often this year. Beat Penn State by 5 to advance to the Sweet 16. You know, and again, I remember Seth Lundy had the steal. He scored. Penn State took the lead with about 4 minutes to go, and he called the timeout right away, which was, you know, the right timeout. But they're not doing well. And they've got, you know darn well, they've got plenty of NIL money. They've got a brand new arena. Allocation of internal resources. Right? When they go to this model, right? We're talking about the $20.5 million, which will then go up 4% to $21.3 next year. You know they're going to have plenty of money. They only have 18 sports. Right? Where do you think they're going to put their money? They're going to put their money into football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and they're going to put their money probably into women's volleyball, and I would guess baseball.
Yeah, SEC baseball's real, so it'd be...
No, but Texas baseball's real, too.
That too.
Right? But that's where they'll put their money. But they don't have a lot of sports to deal with. In other words, my point is they can allocate all their resources primarily to football and men's basketball, and they shouldn't be in the spot they're in right now. Although the SEC is a dog-eat-dog league, and everybody feels like they're wearing milk-bone underwear. it's just, it's really bad.
Again, as we've discussed, like they currently have 4 of the top 6 teams in the nation ranking wise: Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, and Alabama. Right. You've got Mizzou, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Mississippi State in the top 25. Ole Miss is better than some of them in terms of the conference win-loss record. And then Vanderbilt's also sitting at 19-19. You have all these teams that are like decent, and the top 4 alone, the top 5, you include Missouri, like that is going to be not very fun for any team that's going to face them in the tournament. Like Florida is is currently their 3rd team, right, and they're number 3 in the nation right now. That is for any team that's not going to be fun to play.
And everything, yeah, and you can't predict today anything because it depends on your bracket path. Mm-hmm. You just don't know
because you get Duke on a path where they can avoid heavy hitters that.
The key is it's not the opening round. Mm-hmm. Once you get to the round of 32, now it's like no. So I want to go back 2 years ago. I'm in Des Moines. The game before us was Kansas Arkansas. That was a round of 32 game, and Arkansas won the game. Okay, beat Kansas. And Kansas, I mean, that arena was filled with Kansas fans. It's not that far to go from Lawrence to Des Moines. Right? And they were in shock. And as the game kept going, Arkansas is the team playing better. The other game is Penn State against Texas. Well, this is a round of 32 games. There are only 32 teams remaining. The round of 32 has gone from 25 years ago to being like, okay, you know what, I can put that team in the Sweet 16. Their path's pretty good, no problem. To now, because of how much parity there is in the game, okay, you are now in a position where you get to the round of 32, like you've got a game to get to the Sweet 16. I don't care whether you're Duke, Houston, okay, Auburn. They're going to have to fight their guts out in round 2. Right, unless there's some miraculous upset like a Florida Gulf Coast, and I was at that game when they beat Georgetown. I was there, But you asked about whether Michigan State's the 8th best team right now. Right now, they're playing down the stretch like they're the 8th best team because they have played very well down the stretch.
Yeah,
all right, and winning at Maryland, the way they did was crazy. The game was 23-21 at halftime. Springfield was not calling for the tape. No, that's okay. We don't need that. We got plenty of games to put up on the board here. We don't need yours. But that is, but the parity part comes into play when you have this. Why is it that Penn State has had 29 games, right? And nearly 30% of them have been 5 points or less. A third of them have been 6 points or less. A third of them have been 6 points or less. Now let's flip it to Michigan. They've got 11 wins. Now, how many wins does Michigan have? 22?
Michigan is 22 and 6.
Half of their wins have been by 4 points or less. Half. Right? Now, that's credit to them for figuring out ways to win, like last night with Rutgers.
By the way, 4 of their 6 losses came within 5 points.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
I mean, but they've been in all these close games. Both those records tell you about the parity in the game. It hasn't gone one way for one team, Penn State. It's really gone great the other way for Michigan. But they've both been in a series of close games where Michigan, for example, half their games have been decided by 4 points or less. Penn State, a third of their games have been decided by 6 points or less. Right? You sit there and go, you got to be kidding me. Right? That's how much parity there is in the game. It hasn't worked out at all for one team, and it's worked out well for the other team. And there are certain circumstances we can always get into, and I'm sure everybody wants to point to coaching and things like that. I got that. Okay. That's always the simplest solution. It would help, for example, on a certain set in the game on the other night if somebody actually ran the play that was called. I'm not going to get into which play it is, but that was not the play that was called.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I will tell you off the air which one it was. It would help that when you're coaching, it's coaching. When you call out what you want defensively, in terms of like the play call, and I saw the play call. I knew what it was. I'm talking about defensively. I knew what it was, and Penn State fouled. And like Mike's looking around, he didn't tell you to foul. He called out a specific play. I knew what the play was. I made practice every day. I knew defensively what he wanted. That's why, remember what I said in the air? Mike did not want them to foul there. I said it straight out.
Well, we're sitting there watching it. I can see his hands going, don't foul, don't foul.
Yeah, but he made a specific hand.
Well, he made the hand gesture and then said, don't foul.
Right. Hand gesture and don't foul. And they fouled. Right. It's about coaching. Like, yo, hey, guys. Hey.
The goal of coaching is to get it so your players know what to do in situations. Right. Not just
that's why he gave the hand signal of what the play was because of the noise. He called out defensively what he wanted, and he did it not just verbally but with a hand signal. Right? And one guy didn't get it.
As things sit for
But
Penn
it's
State,
coaching.
Yeah, I know. As things sit for Penn State, they have 2 games left in the season. They have Maryland, of course, at home this weekend, which you'll be there for, and the week afterwards they have a break, and then they get Wisconsin in the Kohl Center, I believe is the arena, up in Madison.
You ever hear the story on how the Kohl Center came about?
Not.
They're sitting in the old Wisconsin Fieldhouse, which actually Penn State has never won a game at the Kohl Center. They actually won twice in the Fieldhouse. And the Fieldhouse was an interesting old place. It's attached to the football stadium.
Okay.
So if you're sitting there watching TV and the end zone to the right, those stands are attached to the Fieldhouse. That's the Fieldhouse. Okay. Herb Kohl, who eventually became a U.S. Senator, but Kohl's Stores is sitting at a Wisconsin grad, is sitting at a game at the Fieldhouse. He goes, God, you guys need a new place. And they said, yeah, I know we do. He says, do you think $25 million would help? They said, we'll name it after you. That's exactly how I was told. That's exactly. He was sitting there, and he says, well, you think $25 million would help you get started? And they said, we'll name it after you.
That's fair.
That's the Kohl Center. Yeah. That's how it came about. Well, sometimes it is that simple.
That easy. Well, Penn State will be there next week. As things sit,
I'll tell you, I'm anxious to watch John Tanji play because he was at Missouri.
Yeah.
And they didn't win a conference game last year. Right? This guy's averaging 19, 20 points a game this season. He's playing great. I'm thinking to myself, Missouri had that guy last year and couldn't win a single conference game? Really?
Make it make sense.
He is. I'm anxious to watch him play in person.
Well, as things sit in the Big Ten for Penn State right now, they are technically not out of it, as far as I can tell.
No, I know.
They're sitting at 5-13 in the Big Ten. They need to get at least to out of the bottom 3, and they're sitting there behind Northwestern.
Right now, it's USC, Penn State, and Washington.
USC, Penn State, Washington. You have Iowa, Minnesota, Northwestern, also at 6 and 11. Tonight, a big one. Iowa, Northwestern is going to take place. So whichever of those teams lose, Penn State needs them to keep losing.
The team you need to lose, with all due respect, is Northwestern.
Yes.
Why? Because Penn State has the tiebreaker over them. So they don't have the tiebreaker over Iowa.
So as things sit, you need Northwestern to lose. You need help out there as well. When it comes to Saturday's games, Minnesota, Nebraska, USC, Oregon, Indiana, Washington. And then you go down the list.
Well, you need Oregon to beat USC.
Oregon to beat USC. And then on Monday, UCLA against Northwestern. They're going to be in Evanston for that one. So you, of course, again, need UCLA to win there. And then USC needs to lose against Washington. That's going to be a funky game at 10:30 on Wednesday, which might decide some things for Penn State. And then you, of course,
at that point, you're not worried about Washington. Yeah. If you win tomorrow, if you win, you got to take care of your business. You got to win tomorrow.
Yes.
They're done. Win tomorrow and put yourself in a spot.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to take care of your own business.
Yes. If Penn State wins tomorrow, gets themselves to 6 and 13, you see Northwestern lose to Iowa. all of a sudden.
And again, remember, two key guys are out. Barnheiser's not playing for Northwestern, but Owen Freeman's out for Iowa.
So you're sitting there, let's say Northwestern loses in this case, as we wrap up the show here. So you'd have then Northwestern and Penn State each sitting at 6 and 13. You'd have whatever happens with USC and Minnesota. You're hoping just to get to the point where you are alongside USC and Northwestern, can knock Northwestern down and knock USC down too.
Right.
You're hoping something like that happens. There is a path for Penn State. Right. We'll know the path later next week before we leave. We'll know pretty much by Wisconsin what the deal is. If we'll know if Penn State has to win to get in or not at that point.
Yeah, we'll know by Wednesday night.
Yeah. We will know.
Let's start with this. You'll understand what's good or bad after tomorrow.
Penn State wins, they got a chance. They lose, not so much.
Well, the other part too is I'll take 30 seconds here on this. And I have no idea how this is going to play out. But if you win tomorrow, you have clinched a regular season record over 500. Okay? Whether you go to the Big Ten tournament or not.
Yes.
Okay. 116 schools had to be selected for these 3 postseason tournaments. 68 in the NCAA, 32 for the NIT, and 16 for this new tournament that Fox has sponsored called the Crown in Las Vegas. Right? Part of it is like where you're ranked.
And where are they ranked right now?
And one of the I'll just give you the one ranking service I use because there's like 3 or 4 of them.
But the main one is Ken Pom.
And also, and of course you can talk about net. Well, Penn State right now, what do you think Penn State, if you're just an average Penn State fan, most Penn State fans think they're ranked over 100 right now?
Yeah, 130, 140, something like that.
Right.
Something like that.
How about 66?
So they're technically one of the top 116 teams.
And the net, there's 69.
So they're sitting pretty right now.
Right? ESPN BPI, 60. I have no idea how they do the metrics to get to each of these. I'm just saying, like,
they're in the fold.
But you have to want to do it too.
Yeah.
Last year, Maryland said no to the NIT. St. John said no to the NIT. So there's certain schools that don't want to do it. And in this transfer portal era, can you keep people together to do it? I don't know. That's the part I don't know because the Las Vegas thing doesn't even start till the 31st of March.
Which is late.
Late.
It's past due.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.